The key in the lock was a familiar sound, one that used to bring a smile to my face. Now, it was just another reminder of the hollowness that had taken root in our home. It was a Thursday evening, and like clockwork, Clara was back from her girls' night out. Or so she claimed. She strutted in, a vision of curated confidence, the new dress a vibrant crimson that seemed to scream for attention. It was a daring choice, a departure from her usual muted tones. She pirouetted in the hallway, a practiced movement designed to catch my eye, and though I was sitting in the living room pretending to read, I saw everything. The way the fabric hugged her curves, the glint of new jewelry, the subtle smirk that played on her lips. It was all a carefully constructed performance. I'd noticed the changes, of course. The late nights, the whispered phone calls she'd dart behind the closed bathroom door to take. The way her eyes glazed over when I tried to talk about my day. It wasn't like I was born yesterday. I knew she wasn't going out with friends. And this new dress, this was proof, splashed in a color that represented her sin, flaunted without a care for the man she had vowed to be faithful to. I forced myself to look back at the book in my hands, pretending to be absorbed. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, piecing together the fragments of her deception. I had her phone records, the times she left the house while saying she was going to the grocery. I had followed her to the upscale hotel, where she'd met the sleazy guy, a real estate developer named Marcus, with a hairline so far gone it made him look like a cartoon villain. I had been methodical, patient, a coiled spring waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She floated into the living room, her perfume, a heady, expensive scent that wasn't mine, clinging to the air. "Hey, honey," she purred, leaning down to kiss me on the cheek. Her lips were cool and artificial, like a plastic mask she'd worn to play the role of a loving wife. "Hey," I replied, my voice carefully neutral. I made sure not to look at her. This was it, the beginning of the end. I was going to make sure she knew what she'd thrown away. I excused myself and went into the bathroom, a part of her plan as she had assumed. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my hands were steady as I approached the mirror. It was clean, shining, reflecting my distorted image. In a moment it wouldn't be so clean. On the surface, right above where she would look at herself, I'd written with a non-permanent marker, a single sentence, "I know about Marcus." I backed away, the marker falling to the floor with a soft thud. I wanted to see her face. I wanted to watch the realization dawn in her eyes, the mask of fabricated innocence fall to pieces. I walked back to the living room, trying to act as casual as possible. I sat on the edge of the sofa and pretended to look at a sporting event on TV, a game I couldn't care less about. She gave me a weird look and then turned to the bathroom. She saw the writing on the mirror when I heard her gasp. The sound was like a shard of glass against a chalkboard, sharp and unsettling. I watched her from the corner of my eye. Her face, usually so carefully composed, crumpled, her eyes widening in a mix of fear and surprise. I could hear her trembling breath. She stared at the mirror, as if the words were a venomous snake about to strike. Slowly, she turned and came back into the living room. "What is this?" she asked, her voice a shaky whisper. "What does it look like?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "Just some writing on the mirror, is it not?" She tried to maintain her composure, but the cracks were already showing. "You're being ridiculous," she said. "Who is Marcus?" she insisted, trying a bold-faced lie. I simply smiled, the expression cold and hard. I'd say, ask him, but he's currently getting a nice view of the pavement from my fist. I'd been following Marcus too. I had cornered him in the hotel lobby about 30 minutes before I had seen Clara arrive. The initial conversation was calm, but I hadn't been able to keep my anger in check. The guy was arrogant and cocky, and I'd made sure he paid for it. His suit was ruined, his face was swollen, and I was satisfied with the message I'd conveyed. It wouldn't be the last message, either. Her face paled even further. "What did you do?" she whispered, her eyes wide with horror. I stood up, my shadow engulfing her. "Let's just say that Marcus won't be answering any more of your late-night phone calls. He's otherwise occupied with the realization he's been messing with the wrong man." She recoiled, as if I had struck her. "You can't do this, you can't," she stammered, her voice laced with panic. "Oh, but I can, Clara. And I will." I took out my phone and showed her the pictures, the videos I'd captured of her and Marcus. Her face, lit by the flickering lights of the hotel bar, her hand in his, her laughter, which had become so foreign to me. I was also prepared for the lies and the denials and had been capturing all of our recent conversations. She stared at the images, her face contorted with disbelief. "I can explain," she stuttered. "There's nothing to explain," I said, my voice flat. "You made your choice. You betrayed our vows, our marriage, everything we built together. And all for what? A cheap thrill with a pathetic excuse for a man. I'd really thought you had better taste." I showed her the recording of her conversation with Marcus a few weeks back, where she laughed about me in private, mocking my old car, the way I worked, every aspect of my life that was her own life as well. She cried out and put her hands over her ears. I tossed a small, manila envelope on the coffee table, the sound thudding into the silence. "Those are the divorce papers. I've already spoken to my lawyer. You can move out by the weekend. I want you out by the weekend." Her eyes darted between me and the envelope, her chest heaving with sobs. I watched her, unmoved. I would not give her an inch of sympathy. She began to cry, a pathetic, desperate sound. "Please, I'm so sorry, please forgive me," she begged. My reply was a cold silence. Forgiveness wasn't on the table. Not this time. I turned on my heel and walked into the guest room and shut the door behind me. Her cries followed me, but I paid them no mind. I would give her the weekend to leave. That was more than she deserved. The next few days were a blur of packing and whispered arguments, none of which I engaged in. Clara moved like a ghost through the house, her vibrant crimson dress now a pathetic crumpled heap in the corner of our bedroom. She would cry, would try to touch me, but I never acknowledged her. I had removed every last trace of her from my heart. On Sunday evening, after a weekend of silent, tense activity, I watched as she backed the U-Haul out of the driveway. She paused before driving away, staring at me. Her eyes were red and puffy, her makeup smeared, her entire demeanor a mess. It was the opposite of how she had been the first time I had met her, and now there was nothing but a mess. I stood there on the porch, my arms crossed, and watched as the vehicle disappeared down the street, taking with it her lies, her betrayal, and everything that had once been. I went back inside, the house eerily quiet now. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. I wasn't happy, not yet, at least. There was still pain, a deep wound that would take time to heal. But I was free from the web of lies she had spun around us. I walked into the bathroom, the words on the mirror still visible, and smiled. This was my home again, mine and mine alone. I would have it clean, my heart clean, and my life will be mine. This was my new life, a clean slate, and the future was mine.